So this is a third in a series of sermons that have to do with stewardship, and this reading today really hits on that. We've got this group of 10 young women, and in the wedding customs of their time and their place, they're all gathered waiting for one of the little processions between households that are going on. They're awaiting the bridegroom to come and to claim his bride. And there's a delay. And 5 of these young women have plenty of oil. 5 do not. 5 have been paying attention. 5 do not. They all went to sleep when the bridegroom was delayed, but it's all about the oil. Oil being what? The source of light. So then, bridegroom comes. The foolish young women are begging oil from the wise young women who turn them down. Everybody goes, ooh, that's not very hospitable or generous. Then send them off at midnight to try to find more oil. We get the idea, well, eventually they do, but when they show up at the party, nobody will let them in. With the retort, you don't know the hour or the day. So there's a lot of ways you can look at this. I don't think hoarding is necessarily a good interpretation of this. Stinginess, a good interpretation of this. I don't think that stashing away canned goods in a bomb shelter and getting your AK and your ammo together is a good message to draw from this. But this notion of preparedness, and what does that involve? It's not, the oil, when I say it's the source of light here, it was the source of light. Olive oil was the source of a lot of things in that culture. That was before they started drilling deep holes in the ground in that part of the world and finding another kind of oil. That was the oil that provided, they ate it, they burned it in those little ceramic lamps. It was, they put it in their hair, they used it instead of water for cleaning their bodies. It was extremely important. But here it's talking about, it's lamp oil. It wasn't in a cruet going to make salad with. It was about lamp oil, light, bringing light. And one group had gone about having done their due diligence with regard to developing the source of light. They've been doing their spiritual practice. They had been preparing. They had been on the path. Not just fans, but had actually engaged the path so that they were ready. The others, well, give me some of your spiritual growth so that I can go to the party. You can't give away your spiritual practice. You can't give away your spiritual maturity to someone who hasn't done the work, who hasn't done what's necessary, it's not about works righteousness. It's about the reality that those who are doing the spiritual practice, who are on the path or following the way, are going to be more prepared when the end comes. We We use this euphemism about when Christ comes, but so far, we've been going to Christ. He hasn't been coming to us, right? We die. We die. The anticipation was that Jesus was going to return before the generations that had known him in the world had died. Well, we're still waiting. The bridegroom is somewhat delayed. So we need to be preparing. And that is another form of stewardship. In some ways you might say it's stewardship of your time, because we don't know how much time we're going to have. So in the meantime, it behooves us to take care of what needs to be taken care of. Do our spiritual work. Do our spiritual practice. Whatever that might be for you. It's stewardship. You might say it's also stewardship of our souls. We've got this soul. It's what sort of connects our spirit and our body and our mind. If that's not developed, if that's not encouraged, if that's not nurtured, if that's not expanded and empowered, we've been fooling around. The bridegroom's going to show up, and we're not going to have enough oil in our lamps. This weekend, while I was at the diocesan convention, on the way home, we got a message that a friend of ours in Longview was run over and killed on the street. He was a parishioner at St. Stephen. He'd had a military career in medical corps. Lived very simply, lived alone. I might say he was a little eccentric. Volunteered at the library, volunteered at the hospital. If the doors were open at St. Stephen, he was there. Walking across the street, pickup ran him down and killed him. And it just instantly came into my mind. You know, Bill wasn't anticipating dying when he was walking across that street. When he stepped off that curb, he had no idea that that was going to be the end of his life. I think Bill had plenty of oil. And it's not just showing up at the pearly gates and Peter there with his book and measuring how much oil you've got. Maybe that determines, you know, which neighborhood you get to live in. If you've got a view property. But there is something about the life we are given being used appropriately. If it's just amassing wealth or just amassing ego or just amassing mess, it has to be more than that. And to be a good steward of the time we have, which we do not know how much time we have. And we are reminded that very frequently. It's important for us to get focused, to get centered, to see what it is in our own lives, to be reflective on ourselves, to see maybe we need to work on generosity. Maybe we need to work on self-giving love. Maybe we need to, what is it that me, myself, and I needs to work on? And do the work. Push ourselves. Stretch ourselves. The young ladies who had insufficient oil, they just figured, well, we'll just bump some off of Naomi and her friends over here. It's important. We are given this life. It is a precious thing. But we're given it, you might say, in kit form. Because it's our responsibility to put the thing together, to develop it, to do the things that we need to do. Maybe it's reading, maybe it's study, maybe it's prayer, maybe it's good works. Maybe it's forms of sacrifice. It's different for all of us. We all get a somewhat different kit. And in some kits, the parts fit together better than they do in others. And so some people have more work to do because of the circumstance of their particular kit. But nonetheless, that we together, all of us kit builders, can encourage one another in our particular project. Be willing to help, but knowing full well that the job is up to each one of us to take care of our own life when it comes to this development of the soul, how we spend our time. We like to think that we're responsible sometimes for making sure that other people's kids get together well, and are sometimes all too generous with our commentary on how they're doing in that assembly job. But it's really important that we take ultimate responsibility for our own souls while being encouraging of others. And if we're going to dish it out, we sure better be willing to take it when the encouragement comes back towards us. So, in talking about stewardship and this whole idea of an attitude of gratitude, giving thanks for the generosity in this congregation that has allowed ourselves to have this place, have the things, to have the wherewithal to have a website, as an example, to be able to hire Sister Casey, to hire Julie, to hire the Whites, to hire, to do things, to have a place to come together. The gratitude that your generosity elicits and our ability to reach out into the community and into the world. But also the gratitude for our lives. And that the expression of that gratitude, beyond a thank you, is that we continue to grow and develop that generosity. Whether it's generosity of our time, of our talents, of our finances, but also gratitude for the life that we have been given and given stewardship of, and the soul that is within it. Continuing to develop that soul, continuing to grow this life, to nurture it. So, in the coming week or so, you'll be receiving